Howdy everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Happy New Year, happy 2026. Woo! Today's video is going to be my 2025 reading wrapped. I've been looking forward to filming this since ever because it's one of my favorite videos to do on this channel. It's actually a tradition of mine. So without further ado, let's get on with the recap. According to my storygraph, I read 57 books, which is 12,848 pages and 115.35 hours. Let's give it up for Dulanda. 57 books. Woo, 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 woo. It's the highest number of books I've ever read in my life to date. My top 5 genres were literary, queer, race, contemporary, and politics. The average book length I read last year was 262 pages, and it took me about 7 days on average to read a book. I had 12 DNFs. 30 of the 57 books I read were from my own shelves. That's right, folks, we got books at home. And my top authors were Edward Dante, Carla Cornejo Villavicencio, and Daniel Black. And I read 37 fiction books and 20 nonfiction books. You heard that right, folks, 20 nonfiction books. Mind you, my goal was to read one nonfiction book a month, 12, and I got 20. Excellent work, Delonda, excellent work. And so, on to my favorites. Very funny story with how my favorites list came about. And so I wrote out all 57 books that I had read on my iPad, and I took a highlighter. I was like, okay, if I really like enjoying this book, I'm going to highlight it with a purple highlighter. So that's what I did. Do. And then I counted up all the purple highlights, and there were 19 of them. And I was like, I cannot say that I had 19 favorite books in 2025. That's just not really, 1/3 of books I read were my favorite? That's a bit high. And so I took that list and sat with those 19 books again, and I was like, okay, of these 19 books, what are the ones that I really loved? I went through the selection process again, and we settled on 8 books. And those are the 8 that I'm going to talk about right now. And no, I did not rank the 8 books from like most favorite to least favorite. I'm just going to talk about them in the order in which I read them throughout 2025. The first book on my 2025 favorites list is Let This Radicalize You, Organizing and the Revolution of Reciprocal Care by Kelly Hayes and Miriam Kaba. And I'm going to read the synopsis from Haymarket Books. Longtime organizers and movement educators Miriam Kaba and Kelly Hayes examine some of the political lessons of the COVID-19 pandemic, including the convergence of mass protests and mass formations of mutual aid, and consider what this confluence of power can teach us about a future that will require mass acts of care, rescue, and defense in the face of both state violence and environmental disaster. The book is an assemblage of co-authored reflections, interviews, and questions that are intended to aid and empower activists and organizers as they attempt to map their own journeys through the work of justice-making. It includes insights from a spectrum of experienced organizers, including Sharon Lungo, Carlos Saavedra, Egeris Dixon, Barbara Ransby, and Ruth Wilson Gilmore about some of the difficult and joyous lessons they have learned in their work. So Let This Radicalize You landed in my lap in February of 2025, just a few weeks after our current president had took office for his second term. I, much like so many other people in the United States at that time, were very much weary, tired, and afraid of what was to come. And so Let This Radicalize You was, I guess, the best way I could put it was like it was holding my hand in those opening weeks of the current president's administration. And I know this synopsis made it seem that it's very activism, organizing focused, and it is, don't get me wrong, but the way that Miriam and Kelly had written everything, it was still very digestible. Like, I don't think you need to be in the activism organizing space to really understand what they were putting down. And yeah, Let This Radicalize You offers a light at the end of the tunnel. The second book on my 2025 favorites is We're Alone by Edwidge Danticat. The synopsis on the inside reads, tracing a loose arc from Edwidge Danticat's childhood to the COVID-19 pandemic and recent events in Haiti, the essays gathered in We're Alone include personal narrative, reportage, and tributes to mentors and heroes such as Toni Morrison, Paul Marshall, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and James Baldwin that explore several abiding themes: environmental catastrophe, the traumas of colonialism, motherhood, and the complexities of resilience. From hurricanes to political violence, from her days as a new student at a Brooklyn elementary school knowing little English, to her account of a shooting hoax at a Miami mall, Dantica has an extraordinary ability to move from the personal to the global and back again. Throughout, Literature and art proved to be her reliable companions and guides through both tragedy and triumphs. Dantica is an irresistible presence on the page, full of heart, outrage, humor, clear thinking, and moral questioning, while reminding us of the possibilities of community. We're Alone is a book that asks us to think through some of the world's intractable problems while deepening our understanding of one of the most significant novelists at work today. Now, as my storygraph stats had pointed out, 2025 was very much the year of Edwidge Danticat for me. When I picked this up to read in May, it very much felt like a hug. I could feel parts of my existence onto the page. Something that really pulled on my heartstrings was when Danticat was talking about her experiences with Toni Morrison. I remember reading through those passages and thinking, I wish I knew Toni Morrison while she was alive. And just, I don't know, like, I have just so much reverence for Edwidge Danticat and what she puts out into literary space. And so it was no doubt that We're Alone was going to end up on my favorites list. The third book on my 2025 favorites list is How to Protect Bookstores and Why, The Present and Future of Bookselling by Danny Kane. The synopsis on the back reads, Can bookstores save the world? Yes. As bastions of culture, anchors of local retail districts, community gathering places, and sources of new ideas, inspiration, and delight, maybe they can. But only if we protect them in the critical roles they fill in our communities. Danny Kane, author of the best-selling sensation How to Resist Amazon and Why, and co-owner of the Raven Bookstore in Lawrence, Kansas, makes a compelling case for the power of small local businesses in this thoughtful examination of the dynamic world of bookstores. By analyzing case studies of 12 of the most interesting and innovative bookstores of today, Kane offers actionable strategies to promote a sustainable future for bookselling, including policy suggestions, ideas for community-based action, and tips on what consumers can do to help. A captivating read for any lover of books, patron of bookstores, or champion of the survival of these vital institutions. How to Protect Bookstores and Why makes the strongest possible argument for the importance of a resilient, inclusive, and progressive bookstore landscape. Now, to know me is to know that not only do I love reading, but I love bookstores. I've visited over 20 at this point, I think. I have a list on my phone where I keep track every single time I go to a new one. In fact, I bought this from a local bookstore, Greenlight Bookstore in Brooklyn, New York. And I don't know how to describe this any more than how it's already described on the back. I just know that my experience reading this was just such a good one. I felt very enlightened, and as the synopsis mentioned, that Danny makes his argument through the storytelling of 12 different bookstores that he visited on his journey to put this book together. And some of the bookstores I have visited, such as Loyalty Bookstore in Washington, D.C., and yeah, it's just a beautiful piece of literature. Next up on my 2025 favorites list is Prose to the People, A Celebration of Black Bookstores by Katie Mitchell with a foreword by Nikki Giovanni. And the synopsis reads, Black literature is one of the most powerful, polarizing forces in the modern American zeitgeist. Today, as Black novels draw authoritarian ire, as Black memoirs shape public debates, as Black polemics inspire protest petitions, it's more important than ever to highlight the places that center these stories. Black bookstores. Traversing teeming metropolises and tiny towns, Prose to the People explores these spaces, chronicling the Black bookstores' past and present lives, combining narrative prose, eye-catching photography, one-on-one interviews, original essays, and specially curated poetry. Prose to the People is a reader's road trip companion to the world of Black books. And so to expand on the book that I had shown previously, not only do I love bookstores, I especially love Black bookstores. And so when I saw this came out, I knew I had to read it. I actually had read this on my Kindle because I saw those ready at the library. And Prose to the People is very much a labor of love. Like, it's clear that Katie Mitchell did her homework when she was putting this book together. And I like that it was not just her work or not just Nikki Giovanni's work, but she had called out to other Black bookstore lovers. I contributed a piece about what Black bookstores meant to them. And not only that, this book is beautiful. I'm going to try and show you a couple pages of it right now. So here's the page with Nikki Giovanni's foreword on it. May she rest in peace. Here's a feature page of Loyalty Bookstore in Washington, D.C. And so yeah, as you can see, this is a book that is best enjoyed in its physical format. I actually just got the physical copy after receiving a Kramer's gift card for Christmas. I thought, what better way to end the year off than to treat myself to this? And as I continue to get older and embark on different adventures across the country, I will definitely be looking to this as well as how to protect bookstores for more bookstores that I need to add to my bookstore tracker. Next up on my 2025 favorites list is Sister Outsider, Essays and Speeches by Audre Lorde. The synopsis reads, presenting the essential writings of Black lesbian poet and feminist writer Audre Lorde, Sister Outsider celebrates an influential voice in 20th century literature. In this charged collection of 15 essays and speeches, Lorde takes on sexism, racism, ageism, homophobia, and class, and propounds social difference as a vehicle for action and change. Her prose is incisive, unflinching, and lyrical, reflecting struggle but ultimately offering messages of hope. This commemorative edition includes a new foreword by Lorde scholar and poet Cheryl Clark, who celebrates the ways in which Lorde's philosophies resonate more than 20 years after they were first published. These landmark writings are, in Lorde's own words, a call to never close our eyes to the terror, to the chaos which is black, which is creative, which is female, which is dark, which is rejected, which is messy, which is. 2025 was the year that I very much explored feminist literature, feminist texts, very thought daughter of me. And when I came across Sister Outsider while out on a bookstore call, I thought, you know what? It's high time I give Audre Lorde a review and see what it is that she was thinking. And I'm glad that I did. This book was not a book that I was able to fly through. I just don't think Audre Lorde is somebody to fly through. She's somebody to sit with and really think about. And as I sat with each of the essays, I just felt transformed in one way or another. Now, granted, some of the essays were harder for me to understand than others. I think the one I had the most difficult time with was the uses of the erotic. I think that's something I just need to marinate on further. But if I had to pick which essay was my favorite, I'll say I had two favorites. The first one being the transformation of silence into language and action. The second one being the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. And as I flip through the pages now, I'm realizing I did not really annotate as I read this. And so I hope to go back to it in the future with a pen, with a highlighter, with some stickies, and really have a conversation with the text. Up next on my 2025 favorites list is Black Punk Now, edited by James Spooner and Chris L. Terry. The synopsis reads, edited by the creator of Afropunk, author and illustrator James Spooner, and celebrated novelist Chris L. Terry, Black Punk Now is a collection of original nonfiction, fiction, and comics about the Black Punk experience as told by the people who are living it. Contributors include Hanif Abdurraqib, Mars Dixon, Bront Purnell, Osa Ato, and Mariah Stovall. Celebrating punk's DIY spirit while creating a new reference point for music lovers, readers, and historians, this anthology is for those who've been in the scene for decades, as well as newcomers searching to see themselves on the page. Black Punk Now highlights a diversity of perspectives, identities, and styles at work in this ever-evolving counterculture. Its musical, world-stretching fiction touches on Afrofuturism, fairy tales, embracing realities. The narrative and instructive nonfiction shares everything from surprising family histories to actionable DIY liberation tactics, all linked by an ongoing conversation among femme, black, and brown festival organizers. With striking visual elements integrated throughout, this smart, intimate collection centers Black creativity in the rebellious underground. Similar to Prose to the People, Black Punk Now is a book that is best enjoyed physically. This is another one that I had read on my Kindle, and while it was cool on my Kindle, I know that it's even cooler in the physical. In fact, let me see if I can find some pages. For instance, there is an essay on zines by Golden Sunrise Collier. Not only is it very informative, insightful text on zines, there's also a little guide on how to make zines, which I hope to follow in the coming future. And before I had read this book, I was familiar with the punk scene. I dabbled a little bit here and there, going to music shows, listening to bands, but this book was really what got me to really embrace punk more into my life. Um, it's just a really cool collection, and I bought this the same day that I had bought Prose to the People, only I bought this at, where did I buy this? Lost City Books, because I just feel like somewhere down the line I'm gonna wish that I had this book on my shelf and just can pick it up. And yeah, I don't know, it's just cool. The second to last book on my 2025 favorites is The Dew Breaker by Edwidge Danticat. The synopsis reads, we meet him late in life, a quiet man, a good father and husband, a fixture in his Brooklyn neighborhood, a landlord and barber with a terrifying scar across his face. As the book unfolds, moving seamlessly between Haiti in the 1960s and New York City today, we enter the lives of those around him and learn that he has also kept a vital, dangerous secret. Edwidge Danticat's brilliant exploration of the Dewbreaker, or torturer, is an unforgettable story of love, remorse, and hope, of personal and political rebellions, and of the compromises we make to move beyond the most intimate brushes with history. It firmly establishes her as one of America's most essential writers. I don't even know where to begin with this book. Something that Edwidge Danticat did really beautifully in writing this is that she had set up this book as a series of different short stories of different people going about their day to day. But little did they know, they were all connected by one person in particular, the Dew Breaker, and it was just so interesting to see how she did that so creatively. And I remember at one point I had read the passage and I was like, wait a minute. So you're connected. It was just one of those moments like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Now, granted, this story is not for the faint of heart. It is a very strong, moving story, but I do think it is a book deserving of all the praise. The final book on my 2025 favorites list is Create Dangerously, The Immigrant Artist at Work by Edwidge Danticat. The synopsis reads, in this deeply personal book, the celebrated Haitian-American writer Edwidge Danticat reflects on art and exile. Inspired by Albert Camus and adapting her own lectures for Princeton University's Toni Morrison Lecture Series, Danticat's tell stories of artists who create despite or because of the horrors that drove them from their homelands. Combining memoir and essay, these moving and eloquent pieces examine what it means to be an artist from a country in crisis. Similar to The Jewbreaker, Create Dangerously is a hard-hitting, moving story, but a story that should be told nonetheless. One way reading this book changed me was in the focus it put on what life was like for Haitians living under Papa Doc and then Baby Doc. I didn't realize how dangerous it was for Haitians to express themselves politically, creatively. Censorship was a really big thing. Um, Meeting underground to talk about art, literature, politics, that was very much a norm. And some very, very messed up things had also happened during this time frame. And I left the book with an increased awareness of my homeland's history and what the people before me had to endure, and just a better understanding of why Haitians are as proud and resilient and bold as they are today. Alright everyone, those are all the books I have to talk about today. 2025, while it came with a lot of challenges, both personal and political, it was a good time for reading. I leaned into reading more as not just a hobby, but as something to keep me grounded in tumultuous times, hence the 57 books read. And I also just challenged myself even further as a reader with the goal of having a nonfiction book a month being one thing. Another thing being, if I don't like the book, DNF it, it's fine. And even just within my book buying practices, I had overhauled over half of my book collection over the summer just because I was like, okay, I'm never going to read most of these books. It's not bringing me joy. Why am I keeping them here? Get rid of them. And so I have a lot less books than I do now than what I did, say, 6 months ago, and I'm all the better for it. And even just looking at my favorites for the year, like 7 of them are nonfiction and 1 of them are fiction. I never thought that's something I'd say. Like even when I had the 19 books that I was choosing from, it was like 13 nonfiction, 6 fiction. And so there's clearly a shift going on in how I see books, and I'm very much here for the shift, and I look forward to seeing what 2026 brings as I continue to read. So that's it for me. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what you all enjoyed in 2025, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!